Welcome to the Lightforge podcast. This is Admukta.
This is Merps. Hello. We are uh, almost a week into a new meta. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So this is Tides, Throne of Tides, and Throne of Tides is not particularly important um, because, we kind of knew it, right? What are the new cards? Bubbler. I see Bubbler everywhere. It's a great addition to the game. I mean, I don't know about great. Merps has some problems with but it's not terrible for the game. Let's put it that way. Snapdragon, say similar issues slash being okay. Quillfang Constrictor. I've seen it used against me once. I haven't seen it past then. I've never gotten a chance to use it, but it didn't seem
Fine.
particularly problematic. It seems good. And that's like they added Azumata Neptulon on the neutral side. I've gotten Neptulon many times, Azumated many times. I've Azumated someone else in one of my runs. They are not significantly more powerful than the old stuff, but they are S tier cards that obviously we don't like to see. But overall, none of this is actually moving the whole meta much, is kind of what we're getting at. What did move the meta, though, is the freaking rotation. And that's what we said. We said if they did do a real rotation, this is going to be a big shift. And you know what? They only did half a rotation. A lot of the standard sets are still in, but what they added back, so they took all the actual old sets out, and they added back Descent of Dragons, because for whatever reason, devs freaking love that set. I feel like it's in 75% of metas we play in. And they also added back Boomsday. So, if you remember, Boomsday is a decently powerful set, but it has a lot of mechs. And Descent of Dragons is a very powerful set, and it has a lot of dragons. So, that is the big change in the meta.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing right now. Let's go to the win rates for a second just to get because when we talk about the meta, I think it's important to get a sense of where the win rates are. If you look at the top class, it's Shaman with a 53.2% win rate. If you look at the ninth class, and there's a reason for this, that is Hunter with a 46.3% win rate. Wow, that's a 7% delta between the best class and the worst class. That is not Priest, because Priest right now is at a 38.9% win rate. That's real bad. Anything below 40% is really bad. So there is the same difference between 1 and 9, essentially, that there is between 9 and 10. Priest just really isn't a class right now. But if you look at the win rates, you might be like, wow, this is a pretty good meta. That is to be left up to you to decide
the
whether
class
or not
balance is pretty good. You can play
balance is good.
Almost any class and not feel like you're just, throwing your gold away and your fun experiences away, more so than other classes. The meta is kind of a different story. I'm going to cover I'm going to go back to my mech and dragon thing and cover the two biggest changes in the meta that has a little bit on the, just things to know, right? It's like game knowledge if you're stepping into the meta. And the first one you can feel immediately, or at least I can feel immediately, because I get mothershipped all the time. And that is that mechs suck now. The mechs got diluted so hard. I did not even remember how many crappy Boomsday mechs there were. I was like, it's not GVG, it's a decently recent set. You figure it'd be okay. No, mechs are terrible. Gorillabot, no longer a premium card. Is it nice to get an extra mech? Can you still get Sneeds? Yes, Sneeds is still in and you can still get them, but it's hugely diluted and most of the other mechs are trash. And Mothership, I'm going to tell you Mothership's win rate right now, okay? It is only 0.1% above Knight Captain. It is now 0.7%. That's closing in on 1 full percent below School Teacher, and it used to be identical to School Teacher, and School Teacher did not get better. That's how much Mothership fell, because that's how hard mechs got diluted. Like, before, when you Mothership, you got good mechs out of it, like, way more often than not. Now, it's a lot of trash. I mean, it's still the second best neutral non-legendary in the game and the best one that's rare or common. So, it's still a terrible card in terms of being in the game. But I just use that to illustrate how far mechs have fallen. And if you're using Amalgam to discover, don't discover mechs anymore. Don't do it. That's no longer the thing, even if you are mage or paladin. The odds are not in your favor.
Yeah, discovering dragons. It used to be dragons, and it now still is. And you should definitely have a dragon to proc the discover now.
Yes.
I don't know what you're doing if you are telling me that you don't have any dragons to discover from, because you should 100% have one.
Well, we're back in a dragon meta.
We are very much so back into a dragon meta. You can feel free drafting some dragon synergies early on. The problem is that this is just a dragon meta. This is also a kind of bomb meta, right? This is a spell meta. Venomous Scorpid is back, and it's just as annoying, if not more annoying than ever. The spells are really good nowadays. It's just really frustrating because you can look at the win rates, and I think a lot of people would look at a 53 to like 46% delta and be very, very happy with it. And yeah, that balance is definitely there. I played quite a lot on the first and second days, and then I started playing Immortal. But I played quite a lot in the first and second days, and my takeaway immediately was like, wow, like there is some real power here. That incremental gain that you get from making good decisions, being able to anticipate. There's just some pretty disgusting combos, whether it's on one turn or on 2 turns. There's a lot of initiative everywhere. There's a ton of initiative. So any sort of control play style is very doable. It's very strong. And I can tell you guys, it's like, oh well, you can try to go mid range or something. There's just going to be a lot of games in which you get frustrated because you just there was nothing really you could have done, right? Whether they drafted something really good, or they drafted some pretty good stuff, but then they also played Scorpids and then they generated stuff. Uh, it's really tough. I think the feeling of the meta sometimes is very, very frustrating.
The meta is basically into 2 parts, and this always happens when power level is really high, right? Which is that you're going to have decks, plenty of decks, that just have no shot in this meta. Doesn't matter who you face, it doesn't matter how your luck is, you're going to get crap wins. And this is probably the worst meta for it, worse than the previous meta. Remember when the previous meta happened? We described it as an initiative meta, which is a meta that we had seen before. And we told you to respond to the initiative meta in the same way you respond to other initiative metas, right? Like, which is to worry more about the big picture of resources and less about the nitty gritty on the board, because your opponent is going to have initiative, right? And then also to make sure you always have initiative because you'll need to respond to stuff, etc., etc. It's initiative meta. Whatever you were doing the last meta, it's still the same thing here. But it's amped up. Not that there's actually more initiative now than before. There's probably only slightly more initiative than there was in the previous meta, but the card values overall are so much higher, which means on any turn, the swing is higher. And also, the cards are not like bigger, but there's like a little, like the previous meta actually had real bad card generation, like bad as in weak card generation and card draw. This meta has what is probably a normal card draw and card generation for a meta. So it's going to feel a lot bigger, especially with all the initiative and all the control and all the BS swings that's kind of going on. So when you need to draft, and I learned this the hard way by dying a lot in the beginning until we got a 12 win. By the way, on YouTube now, if you want to check out a 12 win Pally in this new meta, with I don't think it was that good of a deck. It was not a bad deck, but it was not a deck that you were like, 12 wins, yeah. It was kind of like, okay, I guess I'll play this deck. It'll probably get like 7. I think I may have predicted 6 and underestimated it. But anyway, you got to draft big. Not just in terms of the mana curve, but you got to have the card advantage. So you got to have some card draws, or you just got to have big stuff. And you want to have curve, but the curve doesn't have to be nitty. Like a 3-3 on 3 is fine. A 4-4 on 4 is fine. In the previous meta, that was a problem, because your curve actually mattered a lot more in the previous meta. There was a lot of initiative, but there wasn't, like, the length of the game didn't go on so much that you can really turn some of that early game gains into some face damage and finish them off. But now the games just go on for like a couple of turns more than they normally do, and it really shifts the whole like of everything. And Dragons has actually a lot to do with it. But with that swing, what you're less worried about is having good curve, and what you're more worried about is just kind of having stuff to do on those turns and having enough cards to win the late game. You can get like one or two extra cards by playing your board removals at the right time, by baiting your opponents, by putting your opponents into, or like just like waiting for your opponents to get themselves into bad situations. Um, Taking advantage of your swings. Like the skill set is very, very different from traditional like classic Hearthstone in this set. It is almost entirely skills of the new like standard meta stuff, and it's a bit jarring. It doesn't feel great if you have a below average deck. It feels pretty awful. But if you have an above average deck, then you're in the game. This is how you win. It's not a skillless meta. It is not even a super low. Like we've had many metas with significantly lower skill impact than this one.
Definitely.
For like above average decks at least. I don't know about below average decks. It feels pretty bad to have a below average deck.
So, step number one is to recognize the fact that games go on longer now on average. People are
Mm-hmm.
responding as well because what happens is people are thinking to themselves and recognizing it's like, okay, I have to draft a little bit bigger. Now, you always want to think, it's like, is there a point where anybody can get underneath them? But it's sort of like, well, we don't have buckets. So people as a collective would
Yeah.
have to push that super duper far. But what is the next step for you then? Like, because if everybody is just zigging, what is
Mm.
sort of like a kind of like a zag? And look, this isn't anything very innovative, but what I found really helps me is stuff that takes time
Mm-hmm.
to marinate for you to meet that condition. You are going to meet that condition
Yep.
much more likely. So I had a really good shaman deck. I think it went like 10 or 11. I think it might have only gone like 10, but it was a very good deck, and the reason was because I had three of those parrots, the three
Oh, I
mana
got wrecked by
parrots,
parrots.
yeah, that repeat the last battle cry you played. Now, obviously, that means I have three kind of small, pretty useless freaking cards that
Mm-hmm.
I can not never play on three, but I never played them on three, even if I had them in hand. I just never did. And I just trusted that my deck, which you should have enough initiative, you should have enough crappy other drops in the early game to sustain you. And then I need those parrots to get max value. So your deck, the total value, total like kind of boot like just stuff that you generate and swing potential from your deck, it's okay if it's not independent. It's okay if it's not, a twin tyrant, which, you just drop by itself. It's fine. And you actually need the parrot. You actually sometimes
Yep.
need
You
the
definitely need
okay,
it.
I gotta play a spell before I do this. I need a
Mm-hmm.
dragon before I do that. I need to do this before I do that. I need this on the board before this triggers. You will have the time to do it if you play correctly. So these days, it's not so much about I need to make the correct trade. It's I need to draft and then play to buy myself the time
And
to
then
get these
RNG draw.
mega, yeah, and then to allow myself to get these draws to get the mega swings. That helps. Now, look, if you see the opportunity in the middle of the game or even at the beginning where your opponent is like just they're not curving out well. They
Yeah.
you can shift that, right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying to just stay with one thing, but I have seen that like
You
okay,
you
if
shouldn't
everybody
draft for
is
that. You should play like that, right?
no,
Because every
yeah,
game you should do the most optimal move. And if your opponent is doing nothing, like I had multiple opponents just do total bullshit for certain turns, as if the game isn't happening, and I'm like, okay, well then you're dead, right?
yeah.
But you don't draft for that.
Um, feel free to try for those synergies. Like the if you're holding a dragon and you're like, well, I only have like, I don't have as many as I would feel comfortable with maybe normally. And I think the answer to that is like, I don't
Yeah.
know what normally means for you, but get it.
Mm-hmm.
You should have the time. Your superior skill here in this meta is recognizing that, number one, and then playing towards that and buying yourself time in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to get those swings. Because on average, you can't just draft independently good cards to overwhelm your opponent.
Yeah.
This isn't kind of like Druid from last meta, in which that was Druid, right? You drafted or found a Scale of Onyxia. Is it time to use Scale of Onyxia? Okay. Is it time to use Miracle Growth? Okay. So right now, a lot of it is like, oh man, I need to find a good battle cry and then play it, and then I need to play my parrot.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the differences. It's kind of fun. You know, there are many steps in order to maximize your value and your win rate by doing this. It's not as fun though, because as you are doing this, you necessarily are giving your opponent more time to do it. And it's
Yep.
possible that they do it better than you
Mm-hmm.
because they get something crazier. Let's say they make the mistake of them discovering a mech, but then they get a sneeze. They win off of it. Now, what can you do, right? They did it. Maybe it was a quote mistake to discover a mech instead of something else with their amalgam or whatever, but they win. That's going to be frustrating. So you have to kind of let that slide off. You got to forget about that, and you have to go back to trying to maximize your combos, your
Yep.
synergies. Uh, so this is why I said at the very beginning. It's up to you guys to decide whether or not you like this meta. I think some of you guys will really like this skill that I laid out, that I think is very important for the meta. I think the other people will say, I don't want to, at any given moment, lose to one of 20 ridiculous bomb legendaries that anybody could get. I don't want to
Or
lose
100 combos that now chain together.
or
There's
100
so many
combos.
combos
Yeah,
busted in the
there's a ton
arena
of
right now.
combos, and also multi-class combos
Yeah.
because there's ways to discover and everything. So that's just really tough. Like
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's a big give and a big take. Um, you know, you can pick classes that you really couldn't pick before that are pretty good. Warrior is good again.
Yeah.
Remember, Boomsday was a very good expansion for Warrior, so they got back some very good cards. Um,
I'm
you can
still surprised Warrior is decent right now. Like, even with Boomsday coming back. But, yeah, the stats are quite favorable to Warrior.
you can play almost any class and not feel terrible about it. For example, Hunter is, you know, the last non-priest class, and people typically play Hunters wrong. Demon Hunter being number 8 is sort of just like, ooh, that is definitely a little bit rough. But hey, like 47.7%,
Mm-hmm.
it's very doable. You know, you high roll just a little bit, and suddenly you have a very competitive Demon Hunter deck. So I've laid out sort of the pros and cons, give and take. I will say that after playing a lot on the first and second day, I was pretty worn out. I was like, I don't know if I like this amount of swing, this sort of like doing my planning, but in the back of my head thinking, okay, at any given moment they could just hit me with a huge bomb that I can't really recover from. Because the bombs now are all different. They're not
Yeah.
all like twisting nether
Mm-hmm.
and then I repopulate. They are some sort of big swing, and you can try to prepare yourself and say in your hand, I have single target removal, I have AoE, I have this, I have that. There's just a decent chance they'll find something through their big combo that you can't deal with in any efficient manner, and then you're dead.
Yep. And you should be doing the same thing to them. It's when you lose, it feels even worse than it normally does in Hearthstone. When you win, it may not feel better, especially if you're a good player and you're like, did I need to do that? I guess I'm doing that because everyone else is doing that, and that's like, so easy to do. Like, combos used to have a cost, and this meta, the cost of waiting for that combo is so low. that you just do it. That even for good players, even for players who want to minimize RNG, and combos are always high on RNG because you have to draw your pieces, right? So that is very high in RNG, especially if you don't have a lot of actual card draw in your deck and you're just generating or whatever. But we're at the meta in which that cost, even for good players, it's kind of something you swallow and you deal with. Here's the thing with this meta. Directionally, we're going to get more metas like this. I think that as there are more and more good sets, like this isn't exactly like all Dragon's fault, right? Like Dragons make a lot of it possible, but you're just going to have a lot of these rotations that come out with all good cards, and that's not a bad thing because that's what it should be. All sets in Arena should be roughly the same power level, right? That's fair, right? Well, this is the power level. This is the full blast. This isn't even the full blast, but this is as close to the full blast as we've gotten in the last couple of years of the power level of the game of Hearthstone. So there is no going in a different direction. They can't do it. Even if Blizzard wanted to, they can't. And from what Matt London's talked about him liking stuff like synergy picks, not the way it was implemented, but the idea, the dev team also wants to go in this direction, which I guess is good for the dev team because I really don't know how you could go in a different direction given just what the cards are in the pool. So you're going to see this much more frequently be in this type of similar meta than you did before. So basically, if you're not like fully on board with this, and I know a lot of old school Arena players who've been here for a while, this is not our favorite, play style. It's not my favorite play style. I think Merps hates it a little bit more than me. I've kind of been beaten into it and been like, okay, this is just where the game is going. There's nothing to be done, and this isn't like an Arena thing, right? These are the cards that are published for Constructed. We're at this power level. Like what? When everything was Yeti or Yeti plus tiny ability that didn't matter, well, then getting a 4/1 means a lot if you trade well and you set things up and you know what's going on. When everything is Yeti plus deal 2 damage, that 4/1 is not doing much, even without combos. And then you throw in everything is now possibly comboing with 4 other cards in your deck rather than 1 other card in your deck, if anything. This is just what's going to happen. This is inevitable. So get used to it. I want to talk about 3 things that Blizzard can do to make this meta better for all players, no matter if you like this kind of style or if you prefer an older school style, because I see a lot of complaints on Arena HS. I also see a lot of people defending this meta. I don't see anyone saying this is my favorite meta ever or anything like that. So clearly this is not like the best result, and they're going to be doing some refining. Blizzard has said, Matt London has said when they did the first offering rates adjustment like 2-3 weeks into the meta that the next one's going to be much quicker. Well, I'm hoping for 1 week, which means I'm hoping it happens early next week, but at least by the weekend, right? Like, I'm not going to stream again until Friday. I hope by Friday there is some kind of adjustment happening. And here is my top 3 things that I'm looking forward to for adjustment. And adjustments will make the meta better, unless they totally screw it up, which I don't think they will, because the meta's already, like, class balance-wise, which is the easiest part for them to screw up, is in a pretty tight band right now. So first, on the neutral side, you guys know how much we love that they reduced the neutral offering rate for cards like Knight Captain, Mothership. They totally destroyed Gangplank. Those are all very good. And they're presumably keeping the same philosophy because it got a pretty good reception overall in the community. And the cards that are up next is the card everyone hates, Twin Tyrant, which I think is responsible for more players quitting Arena than any other card. And that is at 57.3% win rate, which is 0.4% win rate below Knight Captain, which is the best common neutral card in the game right now, and one that they have nerfed the offering rates of. And then not far behind Twin Tyrant is Venomous Scorpion at 57.2% win rate. So pretty much the same as Twin Tyrant. Those are also historically the only 2 cards, neutral commons or rares, that we have ever rated in the A tier that was not nerfed or removed from the arena or given an offering odds adjustment. Literally the only 2. So with a more proactive arena team, I feel good. I feel good about getting these adjusted down. Now, what's so important about these getting adjusted down, besides the terrible cards that you don't really want to see in the game? Well, they're also both big cards, like really big cards. Twin Tyrant is 8 mana, but it's like a 10 mana card. Venomous Scorpion is 3 mana, but you get to discover a spell. And spells are really good, and some of them are really big. So you are taking out 2 common neutral cards. Or not taking out, right? But you're reducing the offering rate of 2 common neutral cards. That Twin Tyrant's like 2.5 cards. Venomous Scorpion is like 2 cards. If not more than 2 cards. Like, that matters. That matters in the overall drafting meta. And I think you're going to get a little bit of a squeeze on this combo meta from the way it is right now, which is a good thing, because I think it's a little too free of this like wait for combo-ness that we're seeing here. So not only are you reducing RNG, reducing swing, but you're also shifting the meta in a positive direction with those 2 offering rate adjustment nerfs. Another one that I don't think is going to happen, but could get nerfed, is Primordial Protector. We rated that one a low A, but it's an epic card, and so, like, they didn't move the offering rate for School Teacher, which is doing way better, and we rated that at A+. So I don't know that Primordial Protector is going to move, but it also has a very high offering rate, very high win rate. So yeah, that's the 2 nerf list. Now, the other thing that's super good, that if it were to happen, is that they are going to do class adjustments at some point. And although the ban is very tight, like Merp said, you know who's on top at 53.2% win rate? It's Shaman. And it's kind of alone at top. Paladin's 52.6%, not that far away, but you can't say that Paladin's actually number for top tier. Like, top tier is Shaman. And what did we say the last couple podcasts about Shaman? Is that they did not nerf Shaman. They did not nerf Shaman in the previous adjustments because Shaman was doing below average. But Shaman has some of the most problematic cards in the entire game. It has some of the only S+ cards that we have in the game that are not legendary. And it's Wildpaw Cavern, which is rare. And to this day, I've still not won a single game where they Wildpaw Cavern me on 4. Not a single one. I've done this like 20 times by now. So I think Wildpaw Cavern is less terrible design in a meta like this, but it's still insane. And it is the #1 win rate card, to no one's surprise, in Shaman at 62.3% win rate. So if they're touching class adjustments at all, this is a prime candidate to have offering rates reduction for. And in terms of just games not mattering, it will significantly reduce the amount of games not mattering when you play against a Shaman. Also, the new card, Command of Neptulon, is right behind Caverns. Like we predicted, we gave it an S tier. I don't think we gave it S+, but it's right there. So this is also a candidate for nerfing, or I mean, if not for offering rate nerfing. And it, on top of that, the Command of Neptulon being a new set card. I don't know if the whole, like, I don't know if the main set, why am I blanking on the name? The Sunken City set still has its offering rate bonus, but the new mini set definitely does. Command of Neptulon is offered like twice as much as Wildpaw Cavern. And you can see it in the games. Like, you'll see the new cards more often than you may think you should be seeing them. And there's not a lot of the new cards, so I can see why they're doing it. But it means that Command of the Neptulon is actually, like, everywhere, even though it's a rare card, because it has a 2x offering bonus of sorts. So yeah, so those are some candidates to be nerfed on the Shaman side that I'm excited about. And I hope that once they nerf these kinds of cards, they don't just like reset it for a new meta, and that these super powerful cards just stay nerfed. And like, maybe they get unnerfed if the class is doing super poorly, but I would just prefer they never get unnerfed. Like, I don't care how bad Shaman does, giving them more Wildpaw Caverns is never the answer.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, that's kind of the meta. I think we did a pretty good wide coverage of the meta, and there's no like Well, I mean, we talked about Neptulon, Command of Neptulon, which is the only like S tier card that we rated. I haven't seen any cards that made me think, oh, our ratings are terribly wrong. With one exception, if you guys are actually following our rating, we didn't do this on the last Lightforge because Hunter wasn't announced yet. But Shell Shock, when we released the final ratings, we gave it a C, and that's because we misread the card, like what the description does. So Shell Shot is a 3 mana hunter card that deals randomly 3 damage, then 2 damage, then 1 damage. But it's described in such a weird way. We thought it only dealt 3 damage and then 2 damage, and that 1 extra damage matters a lot because that's the cleanup damage. You know, like it'll clean up the rest of the board. So we initially rated it a C, but that's just because we were rating a different card. It's actually a low B.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, and Merps, you wanted it higher to begin with, even when you thought it was only dealing 3 then 2.
I liked it.
Yeah, but now it's a B. It's a good card. So if you were religiously following our ratings, like don't shy away from this card. This is a good card. But yeah, but the
Those
others
are all good suggestions.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the other cards are all like I said, right? Like for the power level of a mini set, this one isn't really out there. This one is very in line. Like I know there was a lot of hesitation about Azumat and Neptulon, and yeah, you do see more of them than we would like. But hopefully, right, that would be the third one. I said there were 3 things I was looking forward to: the Offering Rod's adjustment. One is neutral cards down. One is Shaman down. The third one are these legendary downs. I don't know how far they're going to go in expanding it. But the team previously, when they were nerfing it, when they were announcing Neptulon, said that this was in heavy consideration to be offering odds reduced like Onyxia, which is great. We want less S tier cards in the game, period. But if you look at the actual win rates of these cards, Goliath is still ahead of Neptulon. Just to give an example, the Goliath was ahead of Raid Boss Onyxia in the previous meta, and I don't know. They're not talking about nerfing Goliath. Actually, Raid Boss Onyxia is not doing quite so well in this meta, and I have no idea why. But it's still obviously absurd. But it's being beat right now by Ivus, which I think it should be beat by. I'd rather have an Ivus in my deck than a Raid Boss Onyxia, and it's also being beat by Ysera, which is just crazy. But Neptulon's coming in second behind Goliath, and Azumat is 6, right above, tied with DQA, the unnerfed DQA, and a significant 1% below Varian. So yeah, it's like, I mean, we were along with everybody. I think everybody thought Neptulon was better than Azumat. We rated them both an A, but we rated Azumat like a mid A and Neptulon like a high A. I'm sorry, not A S, a high S, but. I maintain Neptulon's not an S plus card.
Okay. I think those are all decent suggestions. I hope that we'll see something soon. I don't know. Like, I think this meta it's just going to be tough because no matter how you adjust it, but with the tools that I think they have at their disposal, you just got to get used to kind of these swings. I look in the near future. I think Diablo Immortal is fun. I will be playing that. I want to see what they do with the arena adjustments because I spammed the hell out of arena on the first and second days, and I was like, this is not really the meta for me.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a little bit too much happening in every single game. I do enjoy that skill of kind of drafting your synergies, uh, waiting for the right time to trigger them. But man, your opponents are doing the exact same thing. So it's like it's pretty tough because when you get it to hit, I think some games are very satisfying in this meta because you can play them well and you can make some real fireworks happen. But I think some games are going to be pretty frustrating as well. And unfortunately, because of the way that this system is set up, it's like you can only lose 3 times. Those losses are going to feel pretty crushing. Like every single run, you're going to have at least like one and probably like 1.5 pretty unsatisfying slash crushing losses. Like where you just feel like it's like, was that fair? Um, s- and it that might be a little bit too high for you. That's a little bit too high for me.
Yeah.
Just on a personal how I feel kind of level. And of course, we talked about it before. This is sort of like I'm okay being lied to. Like if I can't, there are metas in which maybe you were dead from the very beginning, but I couldn't see it. But here it's very easy to see, and me seeing that, seeing how the sausage is made, kind of makes me feel like, all right, well,
Yeah.
that's all the victories are not really worth some of these losses.
On that feeling side, though, I kind of have the opposite reaction, which is that in this meta, um, there are far fewer games. I mean, because of what the meta is, there are far fewer games where I lose on turn three. It's happened a couple times where I'm just like, "Yep, on turn three, I lost." But in most metas, there's more of that. So in terms of that kind of feel badness, there's less of. But there's definitely more feel badness of, well, my opponent was going to pull off this combo at some point anyway. Like, how was I going to do about this? And when I say this combo, I mean this combo as the third big combo that they pulled off because I took care of the first two. Uh, so yeah. All right, let's go on to question from the goat. We wanted to talk about it last week, but we thought the set was coming out. We were reviewing cards. It was a whole thing. But we're going to talk about it now. Diablo Immortal. It launched on Thursday. It unofficially launched on Wednesday. It officially launched on Thursday. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody is playing it or not playing it very angrily. And I want to break it down into three pieces because we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about it. It's a big Blizzard release, and we're both playing. Like I put in like 40 hours into this game so far. I think Merce put in more, but or at least he's higher level, so maybe he's just more efficient about it. And we're I think overall enjoying it. But I'm going to break it down to three things. First is how is the game, our general thoughts about the game. Second is how you can join us in playing the game because the Grinning Goat clan is live, well, and it is accepting players. And then three is monetization. How much is this game going to cost us? How much this game should be costing you? And what is all the buzz about monetization? What is Blizzard doing here? So let's start with one. How is the game? Right now, from what you've played so far, and keep in mind, neither of us are level 60 yet, so we are not talking about the end game from the actual experience perspective.
We can give you an idea of where we are. I am level 56, and I believe I am like right at the end of the main quest line. Maybe they'll pull a big twist on me, and maybe it won't be. And then you are like level 50?
I am level 52. And okay. I have been playing all sorts of random things in the game. So my experience with the game so far is that I have not been gated yet. I've always just played when I want, what I want, and I've been able to access everything. And I've done everything they told me to. I'm like trying to play the game that Blizzard wants me to play, basically. So whenever the codex is like, hey, do this, I'm like, okay, I'll do that. Hey, try a PvP game. Okay, I'll do that. Hey, Elder Rifts are cool. I'm like, cool, I'll try that. It's like, oh, now go back to your quests. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I never had to grind, never had to, do whatever. I just did one main quest line a day. And there's something called like a level gate where at a certain point you're just not allowed to do more of your main quest. And they make you do side quests and other stuff. It's never happened to me. Whenever I want to do a main quest, I've been able to. But I have done a lot of other stuff just because people are playing and I'm doing other stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about now, you guys know, I played a ton of Diablo 2.
Mm-hmm.
I played more Diablo 2 than any other game that I've played in my entire life. And I played a lot of games generally. I played a ton of Diablo 3, and I played a ton of Diablo 3 up until they came out with like primal ancient items, in which I was like, I hate this. Like, I just hate that system. But yeah, you're talking to somebody who I haven't played Diablo 3 recently, but I was part of like, when the first few seasons of Greater Rift climbing came out, I was playing hardcore and climbing Greater Rifts. So I'm pretty familiar because let's face it, Diablo Immortal is Diablo 3 assets in a mobile game.
In a
Like
mobile MMO. That is very
ah,
important. I kept talking about this last time. You're making fun of me.
okay.
Now the game is out. Will
I'm
you
still making
admit
fun of
now
you.
that the
It's
MMO
not an
part is actually
MMO.
really big in Diablo Immortal? Or no? Are you still of the opinion
No,
that it's
no,
Diablo
no,
3?
it's definitely not. It's like it is definitely not. You see other people on there, and it's more annoying than something that is like any sort of immersion or positive. So no, definitely, it is not an MMO. Like, anyways, okay. So look, it's fun, as in it is a new Diablo 3 experience. I think the combat is good. I was talking about this a little bit even before the podcast started. So
Mhm.
I will tell you this.
Like
Um, eh, eh, eh,
the
huh?
combat's weaker than Diablo 3, right? Like it's got to be simplified. Like from what I remember of Diablo 3, Diablo Immortal seems to have a less good combat system in terms
It's
of
about as good
skill.
as I could hope for
Okay.
here in this setting, or like of how they ported it over essentially. But yeah, Diablo 3 is um yeah, it is a little bit better, right? In terms of the combat. So here is how the game feels, because a lot of people are very angry right now, and I think it's very easy to jump onto the bandwagon and just be like, this is a purely evil game.
We'll talk about how evil it is in the third topic of
Right.
monetization.
But
Let's just talk about the game for now, right? Playing the game.
leveling is very fun. And I think that the game mechanics that they did to simplify it as you are leveling is very smart. So, for example, what they did was as you are leveling, if an item by the game measurement is better for you, they'll just have a little up arrow and they'll be like, hey, this item is better. You should equip it. You don't really have to think for
Mm-hmm.
the item when you're leveling. And that's a good thing because when you're
You get so
leveling,
many items.
you should, yeah, exactly. They want to give you a lot of items and you want to be like, oh, this is a better item. I want to go back to like killing demons, right? Like slaying demons. Very, very good choice. In the end game, you will have to think about item choices. And this is important. Like, I like the fact that while you are leveling, they take that out and try to
Mm-hmm.
get you back into the action. And in the end game, they know you want to tinker now.
So
So,
focused in the end game. You just craft specific whatever. Like I
yes.
spent like an hour or two trying to figure out which gems I need to craft because of what I wanted. Like that was a big like time sink. And then I spent more time comparing some choices between which legendaries I was selecting for one of my quest rewards or like sorry, battle pass reward.
Yep.
And those are big decisions. But in the day to day, if I'm getting a legendary item, like okay, I have to go identify it, and I'll probably use it because you know it's a legendary item. But anything else I'm getting, I am told whether it is better or not. They're sometimes wrong. This system is not perfect. So if you're trying to like
Not
look at
perfect.
every item and
But
you're gonna like try to min max it a bit, you can. It's not worth it, I don't think, but like you can. Otherwise, they'll just tell you that an item is better. And if an item is approximately the same, I noticed it doesn't trigger. It's not like if an item is like 2% better, they're not going to tell you it's better. Um, so
yep.
it's like this like soft system for like casuals, right? But here's the thing about leveling in Diablo 3, for example, or Diablo Immortal. You want to be a casual. It's way more fun being a casual. Why are you min maxing the 0 to 60 process?
It's one of the see I see a comment already right now is how is not having to think a good thing? Because what games do, and this is just good game design. Because if you're saying, oh, then you just shouldn't care and you should just keep leveling. No, no, no. But you also don't want to level and feel like you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Any time a game makes you think that you're missing out on something, that feels bad. And also, I think it's fair to say when you're leveling, you want to spend the vast majority of your time doing the quests, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what's next.
Doing
And
quests, killing things, having things pop out, getting a legendary, which you still have to identify and determine for yourself whether it's better or
I
not.
don't want to think at level 35. Remember, the end game is level 60 plus. I don't want to think at level 35, shifting through my inventory. Do I have any items that are better? I want them to just tell me right away. Hey, you're level 35. You're going to be level 36 in like 10 minutes. Use this item for the next 10 minutes. Cool. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, That's just really good. I think that's great game design. What they also did was you can transfer upgrades from one
Oh
item
yeah,
to the other.
that's so good.
So I do like that aspect of it in which you don't waste that. So these are all gameplay things that I
Yeah.
like. I think that up
On
until
the upgrade thing, I just want to add something. Like it's such good design because of the no thinking thing. Because it's not like I'm upgrading the most efficient or best thing at all times, but I don't need to be because I'm preserving all my resources anyway, and I'm gonna have them all upgraded to whatever rank I'm gonna end the game with. In any case, so leveling one thing from rank 2 to rank 3 before I level another thing, even if it's the wrong decision, does not hurt me, and so I don't have to do research into all this crap. And you guys know me, I numbers everything out and I min-max everything out. I have fun doing it, but I don't want to do it on the 100 systems that exist within an ARPG that's based on, itemization when I'm level 10, about to get to level 11.
okay. So yeah, I think that the gameplay aspects, and also I've watched streams, I've looked at the end game, and I'm like basically almost there at the end game. The end game stuff, I'm just like, okay, this has some oomph as well. Like they have the challenge rifts from Diablo 3, which I really enjoyed. Uh, so as for gameplay, I think they did a pretty good job. Like I would give them like a half-hearted, like like yeah, thumbs up. Okay, for just the gameplay.
Okay. So here's the gameplay. Like, I really like the gameplay. And this is coming from someone who thinks Hades is probably the best game ever made. Hades being a real ARPG, very Twitch control centric, like actual skill, lot of actual skill. Like I was into the end game, going on leaderboards. Like I'm not the best skilled player on my mechanics, but I'm no slouch. I appreciate an ARPG with good mechanics. Um, Diablo Immortal feels like it has good mechanics. It doesn't matter as much by a long shot compared to a more precise game like Hades. And I know Hades is not the most precise game, in that genre to begin with. But given what this game is trying to do, I like the balance that it hit. You have to pay attention. Skill matters. I got slaughtered when I went somewhere. I was like, I'm just gonna click forward, and then I went on something with Merps with it at a higher difficulty level. I was like, oh crap! It's not that I can't handle it. I could handle it. I just had to change the way I play the game as if I was like, thinking about it. I had to kite a bit as a melee character. I had to figure out when and where to use my skills rather than just on countdown. I had to position a lot better. I had to figure out which horde I pulled when. I didn't figure it all out in the 5 minutes that particular rift took, but there's definitely depth to the action RPG element, and I also know because I play with brand new my wife. I played most of my game time with her, maybe 75% of the time with her, and she's totally new to the ARPG genre. She played some Diablo 2 in a real casual way when Resurrected came out, and she's not good at the game for very obvious reasons. She's new to the game, to the genre, to everything, and she's getting better, but it's noticeable. Like she will die. So that means that someone who is new to the game, it's not like she's brain dead, but if you don't play Diablo, you're not you're in the mid-level contents, even not even the end game, it's gonna be rough. And when we tried some of the intro to end game content stuff, she's noticeably dragging the team behind. This will change as she figures out how to play the game better, but this means that there is skill in the game. And that's it's not a brain dead game is kind of what I'm getting at. And a lot of MMOs actually are pretty close to brain dead in terms of the action part, where the main thrust of the MMO that you actually have to have skill for is the coordination within a party part, not the actual mechanical skills, part in just doing random riffs or whatever equivalent in. But Diablo actually has a good amount. I think they get a very good balance on the amount.
That's fun. Okay, so When are we talking about monetization?
Oh, we're not going there yet. Okay, so you talked about your experience with the game and compared it to Diablo 3. I quit Diablo 3 after like, I don't know, less than a month, and I did not look back. It was a great month. I had a lot of fun. Together, me, Merps, and our friends broke the auction house in the beginning, and then I was kind of done with the game because they didn't have the rifts and the stuff yet, and then when it came up, I was onto another game and whatever. But Diablo Immortal it was exactly what I needed. I was excited for it to launch. I love all the MMO features that Merps refuses to call MMO features, but that's what 8-player raids of a whatever thing are. They're like MMO-like features. That's what the whole Cycle of Strife system is. That's what all the nonsense that come around like and whatever are. Like, I like that it's a world. All right, and not just because there's random other players running around next to you being half like opaque and half invisible depending on what's happening in your quest. But
that's the problem with it. It's not okay. It has features that you find in MMO games, but it's not an MMO because you don't have any of the feeling of the MMO because it's just like sometimes a random person is seen on your screen, whether in town or in the field.
Okay, so the way they do it in Diablo is that it's a dynamic system where if you guys are in the same area doing similar things and you're at a similar level, which means because the enemies are pegged to your level, so you can go back to old regions and not like just cakewalk through it. I mean, you kind of cakewalk through most regions, but like the enemies do get harder, so you can't just like fully turn your brain. Like it's a game where you can't fully turn your brain off unless you're doing an Elder Rift. Which I think is nice. So they will be a part of your game. They will hit the same enemies you hit. Everything will happen. You just get separate loot. That's it. Like normal Diablo 3 style. But if they're a different level or on a different part of the quest or, you know, doing something else different, sometimes they're like kind of faded or they're like in there, but you can obviously tell that they're seeing different things than you because they're on some different part of the quest, but you'll still know that they're there. So I like to call it the modern MMO. Like, no, it's not a direct MMO where you are teleported into a world and all the world physics work the same exact way as Earth in our reality. It is instead a game mechanic that makes you feel like you are part of the wider world, provides you with a good amount of interaction, but doesn't make it as annoying. Like, one of the things is doing bounties, which is a very MMO mechanic of just like, go out and kill 10 boars today to clear off your dailies. Like, fine, you know, not the most creative thing, but I'll go and do it. If you're in a real MMO, depending on what region it is, either the monsters will spawn too fast and it'll be so obvious that you will actually feel like farming rather than providing the illusion that you're going out and attacking and finding some boars. Instead, what Diablo does is this nice thing in which people are there and they're doing stuff, but they're not necessarily finding all the same boars that you're finding. So you can still be in an MMO environment while completing your quest. Like, I wouldn't want it to be a one-to-one, like, fully pegged to reality and other people are just stealing my kills. They already steal some of my kills. I don't want them to steal more of my kills. I deal very little damage. I'm a crusader. I get my kills stolen a lot. But yeah. So I like all those kinds of mechanics in the game, but more importantly, because I never had the Diablo 3 experience, the real Diablo 3 experience after they like changed the whole end game up, this is a great way to get that experience for me because it's apparently the same thing as Diablo 3 with just like a bunch of added new stuff. Yes. And they refined a lot of the stuff, so you didn't have to be a part of their beta test. And it all is pretty nice and interesting. Like, from all the things I've heard about Merps about Diablo 3 Endgame, it was quite good. It just happened after everybody already left the game for dead. And now you have a new game in which, I mean, people are trying to kill it, because I feel like Diablo fans are like just some of the most bitter, annoying people in like the world when it comes to what they feel about Diablo. Like, and that's coming from like the world of Hearthstone, which is not all you know, candy and I don't know, fuzzy stuff. But like just the toxicity level. Anyway, it's a good game from 0 to 60 at least. I will not comment on the end game. I don't have personal experience in the end game. Looking like I've mapped out the end game, by the way, so I could talk a little bit about that later. But it's within the monetization part. Because I don't have hands-on experience. I can only do numbers. So that just kind of ties into monetization when you're talking about endgame. But at least the 0 to 60 experience It is very good. It's like an 8 out of 10. Brand new gave it a 7 out of 10, which is very high for her. She hates games. Diablo 2 Resurrected, she thought was like a 4 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. Like this is it's a good game, and you don't have to pay any money for it. It's entirely free. You could do 0 to 60 entirely free, very, 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 very easily. And I mean, I pay money, but I like giving Blizzard money. I still pay money for Hearthstone. I don't have to pay money for Hearthstone. I just like supporting any developer that I play, even if they're not supporting me. That's just what I do. But you don't have to. That's why the payment structure is free to play. Like Diablo Immortal is a true free to play game through level 60.
Yep. Through level 60.
Through level 60, yeah. It is true. You will get all the story elements. You will be asked to pay a lot of times, by the way. They're not shy about being like, spend $1 here, spend $5 here. We can give you this for $28, but you can just say no. And if you do, you will not be really any worse for it. For the 0 to 60. So the 0 to 60 game is absolutely great. I recommend everybody play it. I don't care how much you don't care about the end game or how much you hate their monetization system or, whatever else. Just play 1 through 60, get to the end game, and then decide, because it's a great game. And it's a Blizzard game, and Blizzard makes great games. This has always been true, and it remains true with Diablo Immortal.
Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree. If you like action RPGs, if you want one that there really is no gate that Blizzard puts on you before like you reach level 60. Sometimes, people talk about the level gates and everything. It's really not that big of a deal because okay, if you guys know mobile games, there are some games, for example, such as in that sort of Clash of Clans or like that like what was it like the empire building games in which from the very beginning, okay, you log in, they bombard you with all these things, you play for 10 minutes, and then after 10 minutes, you have timers. As in, you already have things that
it's like an energy system where you have X amount of energy, your energy replenishes throughout the day, and you need energy to do things.
Yeah. So the thing is, a lot of people are making this big deal about level gating in Diablo. It's not a gate. It just asks you to play and farm locations, in which if you're talking to somebody who plays action RPGs, I think my view of it is like, this is pretty reasonable. I don't know, asking me to farm dungeons in order to keep going is fine. Because the equivalent, like if you are comparing it to sort of those like, empire building kind of games, would be if they said, okay, you have done your 5 dungeons for the day, you can't do anymore. Like
without paying money.
Without paying money, please pay money to do another dungeon. So yes, up until level 60, there are no gates. And if you're talking about the level gate that people are talking about, that's not a true gate. That's them asking you to play the game in some other way.
The people who get annoyed at level gates, like, I don't understand them, because the game is not just the story. Like, the game is so much bigger than just the story. And you know what they do in the game? They have something called a codex that has this annoying red, like, diamond thing that you have to click whenever you get something, so you can get resources, clear a quest, or whatever, right? Like you have to claim all your quests that way. You don't have to go anywhere to claim the quest. You just have to go into your codex and click claim, and you get your reward or whatever. And it's persistent throughout the game. It's a normal MMO mechanic. Every MMO has it, and it will tell you to go do a whole bunch of stuff. You don't have to do any of them. They're all essentially side quests, like test out this part of our game, test out this part of our game, try this, see if you like it, right? Do this. And when you get to a level gate, if you get to a level gate, it's because you were like beelining for it. You were like, I'm going to get through this story. I'm not going to go out and kill monsters on the side. I'm not going to try any of their other stuff that they're like doing. No rifts, no challenge rifts, no playing with friends. Just me and the main quest line. We going. Then yeah, they gate you. Starting, I think level 35 is the first gate or something, or maybe level 30 is the first gate. And they basically force you to do something else, anything else. I told you that I have not been gated yet. through level 52, there has not been a single time where they were like, you are not at a high enough level to go to the next area in the main quest. And I also have not farmed any area for anything in this entire game. I just played naturally, but I played all parts of the game. Like, if they were like, hey, part of your daily quest is to complete 6 rifts, I did 6 rifts. If they were like, hey, here's 8 bounties, you'll get 8 more tomorrow, I did 8 today, I'm doing 8 tomorrow. I am just doing everything that they provide a bonus for in the game. And I've not been gated at 52 yet, and I haven't even started whatever this next mission is that had I think 51 was the gate that I didn't hit, and I haven't started that yet. So I think by whenever the hell I get through that main mission, it's still not going to be gated because I am playing the game as Blizzard intended. The people who are gated are trying to game the system. They're not telling that to you because that's how they play, so they like to say, I'm just playing the game. But they're not. What they're doing is they're just playing the main quest. And that's not how you play Diablo Immortal. And that's why the gates exist.
Yeah, I just don't mind them saying, oh, you gotta go farm some monsters.
Not even farm monsters. Do anything. You like to farm because you like farming. I do not necessarily like farming. I like very limited farming, and I haven't farmed at all.
Well, it's not even farm. Like, sorry, go out into the world and do things.
Yeah, do anything.
You don't define it as farming, but it's like, what's a greater rift, right? It's like farming.
Well, okay. I mean, but if you do like 4 greater rifts and then a dungeon that they tell you to do, and then you like go find a hidden like place or whatever, and then you play with a friend, and then you do a side quest line. Like, I don't call that farming. I just call that doing stuff in the game. Like, farming is, I think, like, I'm going to do 20 greater rifts right now. Like, that's farming.
Sure. So yeah, very smooth up until 60, and any sort of gating, like we said, it's not a true gate, and I'm fine with like anything that's not a true gate. It's not even just like not a true gate, and then they make it incredibly difficult for you to get there.
Yeah,
it's pretty easy to get past these whatever gates, if you want to call them that.
Yep. And I want to end the normal gameplay thing with a note about skills. So there's basically no attributes, like your stats. That's all calculated kind of behind the scenes. So that element is completely gone, which is fine. Diablo always had the worst, quote unquote, decision making for where you put your stats. But the skills is also gone. You just get a flat progression of skills. But the runes that were in Diablo 3 are now on legendary items. Every single legendary item has a rune attached, has a alteration of one of your skills attached to it, basically. And you can extract that essence and then put it on any other legendary item so that, your level 20 legendary item, that skill, the most important part, could essentially be used later on. So legendary items become really exciting to find in the progression because it basically gives you an extra skill that you can use like in your rotation. Because they're quite major changes. If you guys remember how the runes updated the skill tree in Diablo 3, like it totally changes your skill basically. Like, just as an example, the Crusader has a sword skill where you throw a sword and it falls down from the sky, and then you can jump up and kind of slam down yourself on it and chase it. I have found 2 legendaries for it so far. One of them basically is just a charge with your sword. You get 3 charges that you can save up. And that was cool. And another one is you're like Link, and you like swing the sword, and a blade of power comes out. You're like Link and Zelda at full health. Those are not the same skills at all. They function totally differently. They don't deal with the same playstyle or anything. So legendary items are pretty exciting to find because of it. And there is differentiation in skills, but you don't get to test everything out. But there's no like skill points or anything. So you do get to test out whatever you have access to. And I thought the progression was really good. I did not like the skill system for Diablo 3 when going through 1 to 60. I thought it was fairly limiting. But in Diablo Immortal, it just works. Like, I was surprised by how little I was annoyed at the lack of skills. I tested out all the skills. I used like 8 different builds through this point. I know which ones I like, which ones I don't like. I'm always excited for a legendary item because it means I get to try out a new skill essentially. So it's the feeling's good and the progression's good. It's a good game.
Okay, now let's talk about the thing that everybody is literally talking about.
No. Monetization's last, unless you mean the Grinning clan that everyone's talking about.
Okay, just tell them how. Like, you're taking way too long.
Okay.
You're taking way too long.
We made a clan. We're going to be playing this game for. We're going to be playing this game for a while. And if you want to play with us or just be a part of the clan and do clan stuff, we're not going to go super hardcore into it, but we're going to play like some of the end game stuff, and like we're going to be like half hardcore with it. Let's say, we are on the Worldstone server, so you got to be on the Worldstone server. The one thing Blizzard messed up the most on with Diablo Immortal, and I do not think it's going to be fixed anytime soon, it is that you cannot switch characters between servers. And so if you make a character on a different server, nothing transfers. You have to start totally new. Not just the characters, but any unlocks, everything just totally new on a different server. And so we're on the Worldstone server. So if you haven't played yet or you don't have much progression and you want to play with us, you are totally welcome. There's 99 spots in the clan. We don't have that many people who listen to the Lightforge podcast and want to play Diablo Immortal. We're letting randoms in, so we would love it if one of our some of our listeners or viewers come hang out with us. So just apply to the guild whenever that opens up for you. It's just called Grinning. You can search it up. You can apply. You will be accepted. We're going to become a dark guild soon, so you may actually get kicked out when we become a dark guild if you're not a shadow, but then you can just join again when you become a shadow. That'll all make sense if you're playing the game in the mid stage. Anyway, that's that. That's how you find us. We have a Discord server. We can get on voice chat and whatever too. So just if you want to talk about it or whatever, you can always message me on Reddit or on Twitter. We'll be responsive. Okay, now Merps, you want to talk about monetization?
All right. So look, if you guys haven't seen yet, you probably should have seen, because even people who don't play the game know. Probably the biggest example is like Asmongold. Recently released, somebody did a calculation and like it went viral, right? Like the $110,000, that number is being thrown around, and then people are really trashing on the game, and that number has become like the one word response to how is Diablo Immortal as a game. $110,000 CAC W. Let's address that for a second. And the entire monetization of Diablo Immortal, and just how I think sort of everybody has it wrong. I'm just going to say this off the bat. Do I think that Diablo Immortal does a lot of things to try and get your money? And these are ways that I don't like. Absolutely,
it's so obvious.
110%.
They're not shy about it. They're like they're not hiding anything. Like they're just going after your money.
Like no, I don't know. Like so, for example, when Diablo 2 Resurrected came out, I was like, I love this game. I will keep on playing it. I don't know how much longer I will play Diablo Immortal for. Like I'll be playing this week. I want to experience the end game for myself. Here's the thing about that number in which people caught on to it and they're like, this is ridiculous. Let's just take Diablo 2 Resurrected when it first came out. And we know what the best build is. Let's take, the build that's probably the most popular, either the Hammered In or the Fist of Heaven's Paladin. So time is money and money is time. But like similarly, it's sort of like, are you able to pay to get things? In Diablo Immortal, you can actually pay through the shop, right? And they really don't allow transferring of items. In Diablo 2 Resurrected, you can pay third parties to get your items as well. So in Diablo 2 Resurrected, how long would it take you to get? Because this is the problem with that $110,000 calculation. Mm-hmm. They used the best item. The literal
best item, and you have to find it.
So
Like, you
and
are
you
not
have to
allowed to do
find
any
it. Yeah.
trading. You're not spending $110,000 in the market. You are paying Blizzard to get
So
this item.
they basically stated that you would have to play however much long for like 10 plus years in order to find it. I will tell you guys right. Yeah, that was a separate other
Mm-hmm.
calculation. They're like, you either have to pay $100,000 or you have to play it for 10
By the way,
plus
those are both
years.
technically true. I actually checked their math. I
Those are,
did
yeah,
over 2 hours of math today on it in preparation for this podcast and
of
because I
course you
wanted
did.
to.
Okay, I will tell you guys right now. Do you know what the best item in Diablo 2 Resurrected, or like the best thing to have is? That would be a perfect Enigma, a perfect like 220 amulet for my paladin, an inventory full of +1 paladin combat skills, +45 life skillers. If this means nothing to you, I will tell you this. You need 10 of those charms in your inventory. This is Diablo 2 Resurrected. This is not Immortal. You need 10 of those charms. In my 20 years of playing Diablo 2 Resurrected, and I hate this because when Diablo 2 came back, a lot of people are like, I haven't found this in 20 years. I'm like, you noob. You are using this 20 years when I know you took 18 years off. Don't compare yourself to me. I never took those years off. You are a fraud. Eliminate that 20 years off your Reddit post. I have not found a single paladin combat skiller with more than 40 plus life in my entire time playing Diablo 2, and I've played a shit ton. This is like actual years and years of playing. Um, and
In case you
I
don't
would
know,
need 10 of them.
when Merps records the Lightforge podcast and or plays the Arena
I'm
Coup,
playing
he's
right now.
playing Diablo 2.
This is Diablo 2
It's a
Resurrected.
sickness. He's
It is
playing
a
Diablo
sickness.
2 Resurrected. He's been doing it almost the entire time we've ever had a podcast or the Arena Coup.
Yes, this is very true. So if we're talking about the amount of time it takes, I'm just talking about time right now, to get perfect items, action RPGs and MMOs by design make it such that you won't get them.
Mm-hmm.
You just will not. So when I heard that 10-year thing, I'm just like, wait, that's it? Like, wait, you could? You can get it in 10 years? Like, we're talking about one of the charms in my inventory that I would need for the perfect setup. I have not even gotten anything close to one of those in my 20 years of playing. So
So,
that's
by the
that.
way, you can roll 41 to 45 life as the
Yep.
final mod on that Paladin skiller. And Merps, you're saying you haven't gotten anyone above 40?
Oh no, of course not.
Okay.
It's almost impossible
I
to
mean, I've
get
never
one.
gotten one. I haven't played
No,
anywhere near as much as you. And you need 10 of those, and that's just your inventory. That's not even any equipment.
that's not
What
equipment.
they're
I mean, let's not talk
Yeah,
about
let's
the
not talk
craft
about
rewards.
equipment. But what Diablo Immortal people are talking about are the legendary gems, which there's a total of 6 of, and then they have to be upgraded and whatever. But
Right.
I think the point
So
is 10 years is very short for these types of games. And I don't mean mobile gotcha games. I mean for Diablo games.
So let's talk about the money for a sec, because other people are like, oh, well, like there's time, and even though time is money, time is not exactly money. So let's talk about the money aspect. The $110,000. Um, there is no official way to buy items in
Mm-hmm.
Diablo 2, but there is a way. And look, if you are that sort of person who wants to buy, I
If you
think you
are considering spending
probably can.
$100,000 on any
Yes.
game, you will be using JSP if you play Diablo 2 rather
You
than
will use
Immortal.
JSP. Now, that calculation is also made with like, this in mind, right now things are kind of expensive. Things are necessarily going to get cheaper as the game goes on. When Diablo 2 Resurrected first came out, how much would you have to have paid to get those items? And you would get them when they sort of like first pop up. Yeah, I mean, we're talking at least 50,000. I don't know exactly how much because like you have to do the digging to find them up
Mm-hmm.
as well. Whenever a 45 life Pcone pops up, I think you would have to drop like $5,000 for it immediately. This was back in September, October.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the prices because I was not in the market for it. Yeah, you would have to drop that sort of money for it, and then you would need like a ton of them as well. So once again, I'm not saying that like, oh, everybody is completely wrong here. I just don't like the fact that people are catching on to this number, and then a lot of people are like, "Oh, like, Diablo 2 is the righteous game. This is like not like this is unreasonable."
This is why.
For
Okay.
anybody who wants perfection in ARPGs or MMOs, because and I think that's where they went wrong, and that's where people are focusing wrong, because that number is perfection, and perfection just doesn't happen in ARPGs.
Here's what people really mean. They're going to couch this in a lot of language about gambling bad, protect the children, protect the weak of our society that have impulse control issues. Like, Blizzard's doing a hard sell in this game. They really, they're not shy about asking you to spend $1, spend $2, spend $25. And they're probably going to do it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, even if you do give them the money. I don't know. It's only been a few days out right now. And yeah, those are sales tactics. There are some more effective on some people than others. It seems from all the reaction that they do a better job of pissing people off and making them not give you money or play your game than they do actually getting thousands of dollars from anybody. But that's just my opinion. What people are actually concerned about is not really any of this stuff, or at least a small vocal percentage of them are concerned about this stuff. Most people are actually mad about the monetization system for a totally different reason, a very selfish reason, because most people who are mad about it are not children. They're not people with teenagers that could be spending this money. They don't have impulse control issues themselves, or are like trying to hold someone back who has impulse control issues, but have been fine in life so far, except now with Diablo Immortal. Like, that's not what's happening. People are mad because they're gamers, around our age usually, maybe a little bit younger, maybe a little bit older. But they're gamers, and they're upset that they have lost in their Diablo game that they feel like they own, even though this is a totally new Diablo game and is not even part of the main franchise line. They have lost ownership of the brand and of the game, and maybe even of the whole Blizzard game, because a lot of people who are mad are not actually Diablo players. They're actually just Blizzard players or general PC gaming players. You never see the mobile people be mad. They're used to much worse. And they're afraid they're lost this because they're afraid that Blizzard's actually going to make a lot of money off this game. And if Blizzard makes a lot of money off this game, maybe Blizzard's future games, or maybe other giant PC companies' future games, will look something like this. And what this is the fact that you cannot own the entire game. No one's going out there and finding 10 P-combs that are like 45 life, right? That Merce was talking about. No one's doing that. Literally nobody. But you had the option in theory. Not mathematically. Mathematically, it would have taken you a million years of gameplay. But in theory, you could have done it. You didn't have to pay a cent extra. Why? Because you own the whole game. With Diablo Immortal, like with almost every mobile game, you don't have that option. It is literally impossible. It is not just practically impossible. It is not just that it takes... So when they say it takes 10 years of grinding to do it, I was like, oh, it's possible then. That's like Murph thought... Me and Murph had the same thought. Like Murph thought, oh, that's a short amount of time. I thought, oh, that was even possible. I would have sworn they would have just made it so it was impossible. But you can't own the whole game anymore. And it's not just the very tippy top item, right? Like, let's say you don't want the top item. You want like a 95% level gear rather than a 100% level gear. You're a reasonable person. You don't need to be like literally the number one big spender. You were still not going to get there in Diablo 2, most likely, without spending money. And in Diablo Immortal, you know what? If it takes 10 years to get to the final itemization, it may only take 1 year to get to the 95%. Maybe even only 6 months. And that's without a market. Remember, all these numbers come without markets. There is a market in Diablo Immortal. And all the top items, almost all the top items that are found, depends on what you think the ratio of finding a top legendary gem using a paid legendary crest is versus using a game-given regular legendary crest. The game-given ones you can't trade. The things you find from the eternal legendary crests you can trade. Those are the ones that people buy with real money. So I would imagine that the whales are going to buy them with real money, and that most of the end games generated are going to be tradable. So there will be a market within Diablo Immortal, and those prices will probably plummet. Or if the game does really well, maybe it'll go up. But I assume that there's going to be a market, definitely. There's also a 15% tax, so it's not a super efficient market. But regardless, the price is going to be even lower than whatever the estimates are. So I've made a calculation of what I think to be 90 to 95% level power level gear for the end game compared to the literal perfection, which is a little bit worse than what you would get in Diablo 2 with near end game equipment. But here in Diablo Immortal, it will only take you something like 6 months of gameplay to get it without a market. And markets can only be more efficient than gameplay. They can't be less efficient than gameplay. If they were, then given enough time, people would just gameplay it. So I think the real answer is probably 3 months. If you are a hardcore Diablo player and you don't spend a cent, I think you can get 90 to 95% of the literal perfection endgame items for the endgame in somewhere between 3 and 6 months. I think 3, could be 6, won't be more than 6.
Yeah. So let's talk about kind of what does that really mean for the game, and sort of what my recommendations are for you guys out there practically. What it means is, okay, here is how the game is going to feel. And one of the major differences, and I see a lot of good comments right now. It's like, if you are familiar with mobile games, this should not come as a surprise to you. Because this game is just a NetEase game that has Blizzard assets. A pretty generous, like, NetEase or NetEase, I don't know how you pronounce it, game by modern mobile standards. Now, when you play Diablo 2 Resurrected or Diablo 3, you always feel like you are looking towards the future, right? And that feels good in a way. I can't wait for my next drop. I can't wait for this. I can't wait until I'm able to do this build. You will reach the point in Diablo Immortal, and I have reached that point already, essentially, where your mentality shifts to, I can't get this anymore because I've reached my weekly limit. I can't get that anymore, in which I have reached my daily limit. They limit you. Now, it's, once again, we've talked about, it's not as hard of a limit because I can do other stuff that progresses my character. So if you only care about, can I do things to progress my character, which is very unlike some of those other mobile games in which after you play 10 minutes, literally you're done, quote, building your empire for that day, right? Unless you buy more stuff. You are done for that day. The game is literally come in, do things for 5 minutes, and then check back the next day. And if you want to do anything else, then you need to pay. Diablo Immortal is not like that, but
like that's why it's called a wall, right? It's not called a prison.
It is a wall.
It's literally a wall. You hit a wall. You can't go that direction anymore. That's what a wall does.
You can't go that direction.
But you can go in the other directions and have fun with the game. You're still playing the game, and it's a lot of the similar stuff. You're getting out there, you're using your skills, you're attacking, you're killing enemies, you're getting loot, like, you know.
If that is going to bother you a lot, maybe this isn't the game for you. If you are somebody who, number one, cares about pushing the very top of either the PvP leaderboard, ladder, whatever, or the single player / group play rift, challenge rift
and
ladder.
When Merv says the very top, he means like number 1 through number 3. There's not enough players on servers right now that actually make number 10 even that competitive.
Yeah, and also right now it's like not like, people are doing things, people are still figuring things out. We're still trying to figure out like game mechanics as well. But if you want to be very competitive there, and not just be competitive, if you, by recognizing your potential limitations, will get very frustrated by that. And by limitations, I mean you not being able to get like a top 5 ranking, something like that.
And Chat Svat, who plays with us, I mean, like he's in our guild. He's in Asia, so we don't play the same times always. He says he was number 42 wizard on his server, not playing for 2 days. That's what the competition is. Me and Merps messed around while I tried to figure out how to use my character on a 2-player Rift level 12 last night or something, and we were number 17 on the leaderboard for 2-player Rifts. Like, this is me, like, dying like 6 times in the Rift, being like, oh my god, this game has difficulty now all of a sudden. What? Like, not adjusting to it at all. And Merp's trying to hard carry me through this. Like, I figured out a little bit of it at the end, but I'm still terrible at playing my character, and I'm not, like, outfitted for the Rift or gave any thought whatsoever to what was going on and what I was doing right before entering. And we were number 17. Like, so we're literally talking about endgame top 3 or 5 people here.
Yeah, but yeah, like assuming things will time will go on, people will spend more money, they will get better end game gear than you faster, and if you are going to be frustrated at just always being to some degree
second tier,
inferior,
to
always
worse.
being second tier, to being second tier in PvP and second tier in these Rift challenges in which whoever does the highest rift in the shortest amount of time will be highest. If that'll bother you a lot, don't play the game.
No.
Because that is absolutely true.
So, 100% guaranteed. Blizzard will not change that.
Yeah. So look, I think I'm trying to be fair here. I've done a lot of sort of like, okay, the $110,000 thing. I think people are putting too much focus on that. I think too many people are focusing on a lot of the things that are, if not unfair to Blizzard, don't tell the whole story. But this is where the buck stops.
Yes.
I think that Blizzard does a lot of things to remind you that you can improve by spending money in the late game, and you will 100%, if you want to be, to quote Pokemon, if you want to be the very best, like no one ever was, get out your credit card.
But here's the thing about being the very best. Even if you get out your credit card, you're not going to be the very best. Because, like, that's where the 110K number comes from. Like I said, that is a literal correct number. It's not like they did bad math. They're just misleading about how to apply it. If you're going to get out your credit card and try to be number one, you still might not be number one. And if you get out your credit card and drop, like, $40, like, you may get some of the stuff you want and progress and make your character better and get closer to the build you want, if not get to the build you want, like, a reasonable 95% build, not a 100 build, obviously. Then you still may not be the best, right? Because, like, it's just how much money other people spend. And when you're talking about the literal number one on your server, the literal number 2, number 3, number 4, I don't know. How do you know they're not spending $10,000, $100,000? They could be, right? Or even if they're not, maybe after you beat them, they will then spend $10,000 just to beat you. It's like an auction gone out of control, right? Like, this stuff happens. So if you are trying to do any of that stuff, just be prepared with a very large wallet, because you will need to. But for the 99.99% of people thinking about playing this game and either don't care or can convince themselves that they really shouldn't care because they were never a top 5 player anyway, and they were very unlikely going to be a top 5 player in Diablo Immortal, and the endgame at least, it's just, like, you're fine. You're totally fine. This game is no more expensive than any other, I'm not even saying mobile game, than any other Blizzard game. This game is going to be cheaper than Hearthstone Constructed. I will promise you that.
Well, Hearthstone is a very expensive game.
I mean, that's fair. That's why that's why I'm so confident using it, right?
Yeah, people complain about monetization of Hearthstone as well, in which I agree with that. Hearthstone is a very expensive game. And if anything, there's actually less you can do in Hearthstone by not spending money. Well, Arena is one of them, which is why Arena is kind of popular amongst some people. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, you just have to kind of ask yourself, am I okay with this constant feeling and knowing that, oh, I'm gated for this, I'm gated for X, I'm gated for Y. I can do, like A, B, C, and Z to keep progressing my character. Am I just okay knowing that I'm gated for X and Y for this day/week? If you're okay with that, then sure, play it. If you're not okay with that, don't. Because, a lot of games come down to how we feel about it. If you're also not okay with knowing that in the end game, you are just not going to be on the same power level as the top PvPers and top people doing these rifts, stay away. Don't play. this is not the game for you. In fact, mobile games are not the game for you.
Yeah.
Like just period.
Well,
Mobile
I mean,
games are
that's
not
what
the
they
game
always
for you.
say, right? Like people who are defending this are always like, "This is like the least gotcha mobile gotcha game in the entire like existence," and other people are like, "Well, that you're talking about mobile games."
There
It's
are
true.
Yeah, like the mobile game standard cookie cutter template right now is so predatory, so gating. If you guys haven't seen any other mobile games, like they are so bad that like because I play some of the play is a strong word for some of these games. You actually play Diablo Immortal. Some of these
Yeah.
other games
And you continue to
mandate
play
it within
Diablo
5
Immortal
minutes.
even if you're
Yeah.
gated, and you continue to play Diablo Immortal even if they're asking you for money and you don't give them any.
Yeah. So with these, there are some mobile games that I'm just like, this is barely a game. I think Diablo Immortal is definitely like on the better side of those games.
See,
Now, I'm not talking about a game like Angry Birds, right, in which you just pay one and you're like, oh yeah, this is fun.
yeah.
Or
You're talking about like MMOs or something that
I'm,
like
I'm
has progressed like continuous support and
I'm talking about mobile microtransaction games, in which Diablo is one of the like better ones. It's one of
it's one
the
of the
better
best
ones.
ones because it expects to have the scale that can allow you to. Here's the thing with and people always, I get also really annoyed by this. Like Blizzard's just going to get money and get rich. What do you think Blizzard's doing with the money? They're putting the money back into the games that you play or their future development games that you play. Like, yeah, this is a trickle down theory. It's not all of it's going to trickle down. But don't act like Blizzard's just going to take your money and like, wine and dine themselves and whatever, right? They got shareholders, they got whatever. Like this is all, not all. This is a lot of this is going to trickle back to you, even if they're just getting rich off of it. And Blizzard has the scale that other companies sometimes don't. To one, think 10 years ahead of time, not 1 year ahead of time, not 2 months ahead of time. Hearthstone's been around for 9 years. Like Blizzard's like a casino. That's the best way I could put it. They're more like a casino than like a grifter. Some of these games that pop up, they're like grifters. They need the next paycheck. They need the quick hit. They don't care about you because otherwise they're not going to survive on their business. Blizzard isn't like that. Blizzard is a casino. They want your money. They want you to give them a lot of money. But they want you to give them a lot of money over 3 years, over 10 years. They don't want to bankrupt you right now or leave you with a terrible taste in your mouth and then you quit Blizzard games. And then they don't get money from you next year or the year after. That's not their business model. And they're going to do what is in their power to make you play the game for a reasonable, amount. If they are charging, if they're making, like, if people are like, basically, if the predatory aspect of the game, quote unquote, worked on enough people, then Blizzard has failed. And I don't mean that Blizzard has failed morally. I mean, Blizzard has failed as a business. Because the interests of Blizzard as a business, when it comes to predatory practices, aligns, not perfectly, but quite well with that of your average player when it comes to a game like Diablo Immortal. And that's what people just don't like to think about, or don't understand, frankly. Like, they're just like, big business bad. Rich people get money. I don't have Blizzard shares. Like, but this controls for some of this stuff, even if it's not, like, illegal to do predatory practices. And also, when Merps compares this to a mobile game, like it is a mobile game first and foremost, and that's why the PC client is in beta, I don't look at it as that comparison. I think Diablo Immortal is a good PC game. I think it's fair is a hard word to use. I think it is a not unfair amount that they are trying to get from you to play a game of this quality that they constructed for the PC as Blizzard. Now, if an actual true indie company, not lol Blizzard indie company, if a true indie company came out with this game and tried to sell it to you, they would have charged way less, right, than Blizzard would. But you could just see how Diablo 2 Resurrected gets charged, right? Like, that was a $40 game. Blizzard, if this game came in one package, Blizzard was going to charge you $40 to $60 at the start, and then $20 every 3 months. Absolute cheapest is what Blizzard would have charged you, assuming no microtransactions or only cosmetic microtransactions. And that's not Blizzard is so bad or whatever. That's just how much this game costs to make and a company to run and whatever. So from a microtransactions perspective, this is me, and I want to give Blizzard money. I set out a range of the amount of money I'm willing to spend on a game. I did this for Mercenaries. I'm doing this I do this for all the games in which there's microtransactions. Less to control myself because I really don't mind spending a lot of money on games. I just never have. More so because I don't want to pay to win. Like, paying to win doesn't feel good to me. But at the same time, if a developer is literally there begging me for money the way Blizzard is in Diablo Immortal, and Mercenaries for that matter is to a smaller scale, I'm going to give them some money. I like developers. I support them. I'm playing their game. So I'm like fighting that battle. But what I do is I set aside a certain amount of money. It's usually a range of X number and 2X number. And then I stick to it. And that's that. I've spent $20 on Diablo Immortal so far. I'm probably going to spend another $20 next week. And over the course of the next 3 months, I am going to spend $100 to $200. Because that's how much, like, assuming I keep playing Diablo Immortal, because that's how much I want to spend to support Blizzard making a new game in the Diablo franchise that I really enjoy playing. Now, if the end game is terrible and I hate playing it, I'm not going to give them that much money. But whatever. And then if it keeps going and I keep playing, I'm probably going to drop another, I'm probably going to drop money like it's a $40 or $30 monthly subscription fee, like the equivalent thereof. Because that's what I pay for money, right? But you won't have to do that to get almost the full enjoyment out of Diablo Immortal. And I'm very uncertain that the amount of money I put in at that rate is going to have any significant impact on how powerful my character is. Like, I really doubt it. Like, I think that this game is the exact opposite of what people say. People say, oh my god, it's a game for whales. Total opposite. This is a game that penalizes you every step of the way for spending money, while asking you to spend money. Like, I don't know why they set it up that way, because it's not good. Like, I don't think, oh, Blizzard is brilliant. Blizzard is very dumb when it comes to this stuff. Like, this is NetEase and Blizzard having some kind of, like, miscommunication or, like, some political internal thing that's, like, gone out of control and it's just hurting the whole entire product. Because spending money in this game doesn't get you very much. That's the whole problem. If you actually spent a good amount of money, like, say, $10,000, and you could get to the end game, people will complain less, not more. And that's the whole problem. The whole problem is that this game is not gacha enough. The whole problem is that this game, you can spend money and you cannot feel as much progression. Unless you spend the most absurd amount of money, which really, this can be like a handful of people that are actually going to do that. Like,
it is also interesting. Like, so what's a lot of those empire building mobile games do is that the first $5-10 you spend,
you get so much.
You get
oh my god, much. I feel so good when I spend $10 on a random shitty mobile game. I mean, I justify it by saying, well, I played this game for like 20 hours, right? Like, what's $5 to $10 for 20 hours of entertainment? But like in Diablo Immortal, you know what you get if you spend $20? Like one cosmetic and like a couple of legendary rifts. I don't know. Like, I've spent $20. I feel like comparing me to Brand New, who has played almost as much as me and has spent $5 instead of $20. I think I'm 1% to 2% more powerful than she is. Definitely less than 5% more powerful. And this is in the leveling progression period, where in most games they would just be like, "Oh, you want to give us $10? Do whatever." So this is not like, don't spend money on this game is what I'm saying, unless you want to support this game. That is what spending money on this game means. It means you are supporting the game. It is functionally the equivalent to cosmetics. Like, yep. That's why, like, Merps hates the 110k because it totally misses the point, and I agree with him on that, but I love the 110k number. People should know. People should be warned. It takes 110k to make a difference in this game. So, your $50 that you're spending, don't expect anything. It's the equivalent of cosmetics. And I take great comfort in that. Because people are not going to outspend me for what I want to do. And if they do outspend me, they're not going to get much out of it. Because I don't need to be number 1. I don't need to be number 2. I just want to be able to play the actual end game. And especially the PvE part, which Blizzard, because they're a game designer, will design in a way that a good amount of people can access it. Which includes free-to-play players, certainly includes people who pay a moderate amount of money. And paying a moderate amount of money, like I said, improves your character by like less than 5%. So if a moderately paying customer which Blizzard is designing the game for, can actually like do like endgame raids and Heliquary and like whatever, then so can a free-to-play player. Why? Just because you don't get that much from your money. So if you're on the edge about this game, if you think, oh no, maybe I have to spend $100,000 to be relevant, you do not. That is not a game. It's certainly not a Blizzard game, and that is not this game. In fact, spending money does very little to nothing in this game. So feel comforted by that if you want to not spend money. And if you want to spend money, just know that all you're doing is donating money to Blizzard. Like, that's what I'm doing. I'm donating money to Blizzard because I support them. That's it. The tiny bits of crap that I get and like the cosmetics are like nice, right? It's like that's why it's a donation, right? Like, you know when you donate to a charity and then they give you like a little thing, right? Obviously you're not paying for the little thing, right? That's just the charity being like, hey, it's a token of our appreciation. You just gave us like $20, right? Like, we're gonna give you a pin. That's Blizzard in Diablo Immortal. Oh, you're gonna give us the $15 we've been chasing you on? They also chase you a lot about the money, like I said. But like, what are we going to give you? Oh, we're going to give you this nice little pin. And you're like, cool. Why? Because I'm donating money to Blizzard. Now, if you're thinking, I'm going to pay $20, I'm going to get $20 of value out of this. No, you're going to feel terrible. You're going to feel worse by giving Blizzard money than not giving Blizzard money. It's a weird system, okay? It's a weird system. And this system is not a mobile system. Like, Merps compares it to the mobile system. I compare it to the exact opposite of a mobile monetization system. Mobile monetization systems make you feel good when you give them money, so you give them more money. Blizzard makes you feel less good when you give them more money, so that you give them less money, so that you have more money, and then you can give them more money when you realize later on, hey, I spent a month in this game, I guess I could drop $20 for this cosmetic or for a few legendary rifts and see how the big whales are like rolling. Like, the math doesn't add up. You get crap for your money. That is all. And if you hate monetization, this should be a great news for you. This is pretty much a free-to-play game. Like a real free-to-play game. Outside of the very top PvP.
Yep. So look. Once again, bottom line, the recommendation is this. If you like action RPGs, play until level 60. You won't feel any negative kind of aspects at all, and then you can decide, because I think it's a fun game. You can and then once again, the caveat is you can stay away completely if you know that you're an ARPG pro and you know that I want end game content, and I want to be among the tippy top percentage.
Like, that's why you're playing this game or any game.
That's why I'm playing the game. And if you want to do that, and also, you're not Jeff Bezos listening to the Lightforge podcast, and you don't want to throw... Hey,
we
Jeff,
would appreciate a donation.
Yes.
Small one, tiny one, 0.0001% of your net worth.
That would set us up pretty well. If you need to do that, and it would bother you that you are not that, and you are not, Jeff Bezos, stay away from this game 100%.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time. Please do not. Like, I will save you that from like that time.
And if anybody tries to convince you otherwise, like, I don't know, like, they don't understand you. That's all I can say. Because this game is designed very poorly for that. Very, very poorly. Like, the poorest game possible for that.
And anything in between, that's tough. That's going to be up to you.
I don't think it's tough. I think it's easy. I think it's a home run. I think the only people who are going to not like this game when they play are going to not like it for cosmetic and feeling reasons of just Blizzard hounding, or NetEase hounding you for money. Like, because that part is not a good experience, right? Like, you're trying to play a game and there's just like annoying salesmen constantly trying to give you deals of stuff that you like don't necessarily want and that are like terrible deals, honestly. And they'll be like, you get 800% more stuff, and you're like, okay, but the stuff you give me is worth like very little, so yeah, maybe I'm getting 800% more of the very little stuff, but if I'm giving you $1 for 8 cents, that's still not good. Like, if that makes the game, just like ruins the game for you, like, also, yeah, this game's gonna keep doing that, I have a feeling. But for anyone else, do not let monetization stop you. Just be a free-to-play player, or pay whatever you think is fair, and figure that out ahead of time, and just don't allow yourself to make any impulse purchases. And of course, the other people who shouldn't play this game because they shouldn't play any kind of microtransaction game are people with actual impulse control issues that can't, keep with a budget. Like,
So yeah, I've seen that
like,
argument being
yeah,
tossed around, and I have seen like people even in chat. They're like, no, 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 you're missing the point. It's like the impulse control about. But this is sort of like talking of like, it's like okay, every single time I mention any sort of like a review of like a new alcohol, like maybe I guess I should mention it's like okay, if you have drinking problems,
yeah,
be aware that my
yep.
review of this alcohol, you should stay away. Like, I think that is, I don't know,
I don't
a
think we
given.
have to
Like,
worry about it from our perspective because we're doing a Hearthstone podcast. And if you have impulse control issues, oh my god, please stop it with Hearthstone to start.
like that's the thing. We're in a game already in which, let's face it. Look, I don't agree with. It's why I play Arena. Like one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I play Arena. I don't agree with it. Hearthstone could be, and look, I'm not equating it to these like mobile games I'm talking about or Diablo Immortal, but yeah, you could spend quite a lot of money freaking buying packs in Hearthstone as well. Um, so look, I get it. Like, and those people shouting from the rooftops that mobile games can be and are very predatory, and people can get into really bad spots through a
Mm-hmm.
game like Diablo Immortal. Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, 100%. I'm not gonna harp on it because it's not something that is new with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like if you believe that any like a- any winery that comes out with a new wine, you're like, okay, we should spend some time discussing the negative effects of alcohol as well. Sure, that's your belief. In my review of that new wine, I may not mention it. Do I think that alcoholism is a huge issue? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it obviously is. So that's also something that I think needs to be addressed because I see people are like, you are not addressing the main point, and it's kind of
That's
like,
but
look, I agree with all of this.
that's the thing. It's not the main point, and it shouldn't be the main point. It's a point. It affects a small percentage of individuals, and by this point, especially if you're listening to a Hearthstone podcast, but just generally if you're in gaming, you should know by now. And if you don't, there are plenty of things out there reminding you of it. And we do not disagree with any of those things. We are in full support of it. We believe that impulse control is a problem. It affects a non negligible proportion of the population.
Yep.
And in a really bad way, it affects probably everybody in some way. But in like the really truly tragic cases, still, and those people should stay away from all sorts of games, any games with microtransactions, any games. And Diablo Immortal may be a particularly bad version of this because, like I said, you get nothing. You get nothing when you give them money. So if your impulse control is bad and you pay them money and you don't get anything, or you don't get anything that matters, you're like, I'm going to give them more money. Then this game is going to be a bottomless pit, even compared to other gacha games.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So yeah, I want to give one last plug for my math. I'm not going to share with you, so you don't really have anything to believe in besides just me and my reputation for doing okay big picture math. Terrible arithmetic, but okay big picture math. When I say that in 3 months, 6 months tops, your free to play will definitely be able to do all the end game stuff, including almost top level PvP. You're free to play player. That's like, I'm not the developer, but I think that has a above 75% chance of happening, and that it will happen without any major changes on Blizzard's side to either their monetization policies or their like itemization policies. And that is based on my math and my experience with ARPGs and what effects things are, and a little bit based on just my predictions of how they'll design their endgame dungeons beyond what currently exists, because we know what currently exists, but we don't know what they're going to like release 3 months from now, right? But based on just game design, having been a game designer and just having been around games for so long and caring about game design, like and looking at Blizzard's history of game design, That's not who they're going to design this game for. It's just going to be there for people who want to spend the money. All right. So, again, the server is the Worldstone. The clan is Grinning Goat. We welcome you. It is a free-to-join clan, and if we kick you out when we become a dark clan, come back when you become a shadow, and, we will definitely let you in. And you can play with us when we do, either raids or just kind of like leveling or whatever.
All right, that's it.
All right. That was it for the Hellforge podcast. We will see you again next week for more Diablo Immortal analysis. No, more Hearthstone. Until then, this is Adwicta.
This is Merps. Bye. We actually did talk about Diablo much longer than
we did. But we've been playing Diablo for like so long in this time. It's a new game launch. And you know what? When Diablo Resurrected came out, I think we did 2 episodes where we talked more about Diablo than about Hearthstone.
I would never play in a PvP game where money equals gear. Yeah, that's fine.
That's totally fine. Like I totally understand that.
That's totally legit.
And honestly, I wouldn't do it either. Seriously, like it's just not like it's because it's fundamentally unfair, right?
Yeah,
like,
it is unfair.
In the PvE, what are you facing? You're facing the developer and what the developer creates. So it's always unfair, right? Like whether it's fair or not depends on what the developer does in the particular thing they design for you. But in PvP, you're facing an opponent. So when there's money involved in microtransactions, it's just unfair, flat out. And I totally understand, and I'm with you, and I do the same thing, where I don't participate in things that are fundamentally unfair by any significant margin.
If you want to know how far you can go as full free-to-play, I would recommend... Oh, yeah. So, the person you're talking about is a super pro in action RPGs, also played Diablo 3 a ton. But yeah, so gear tag, I would say at least right now, like
it's early.
I always want to be fair to everything.
Yeah,
I want to be fair to Blizzard, as in I think they're getting bashed a little bit too much on here. I think though that example, because that was a person who played the beta, who is a super pro at action RPGs, who was just the #1 monk in Diablo 3 for like the longest time. Right now, whales can't fully whale yet.
They can't. That's the thing. Blizzard is so can't. Everyone's worried about the wrong thing. Because you know how you whale in this game? You spend money for legendary rifts that you can spend up to $7.50 on per rift you do. It takes you, what, like 3 minutes to do a rift? How long does it take to do a rift? I don't even know.
Sure, but at the same time, it's like,
Okay, let's say it takes you 5 minutes to do the average rift and do town stuff and like whatever, right? That means in 1 hour of dedicated grinding, you can only spend, I don't know, what's 6 times 7.5? $45. Is that right? That seems
no.
That's not right. Maybe not $45. I thought it was $45. No, it's $45. $45. See, Tempest Shade is right. It's $45. I did my math in my head.
Wait, 6.5 times 7?
Huh? 7.5 times 6.
Oh, 45. Okay. Wait.
7.5 times 6. It's 45.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
So, I thought you said 6. Okay.
Okay, so it's $45. That means every hour for a whale that's trying to spend $100,000, every hour they can only spend $45. Now, for you and I, spending $45 in an hour on a video game is a lot. For a whale, especially at the launch of a game, this is such a trivial amount. Like, the whales are gated so hard in this game. Gated so hard, much harder than you're gated. Like 100, 1,000 times harder than how you're gated. Like,
all right, guys. We got a new crate for Iggy.
Oh shit!
See it? It's gonna be in the background. Oh, here you go. That's Iggy in her crate. It's a big one. It's a big crate. We had to move the Pokemon display, but now Iggy gets to be in the room. There you go. Look. Big crate. All right.
Okay, fine. I was wrong. $140 an hour because you can apparently do 10 legendary
Yeah.
crests. You
Oh
can
yeah,
only
yeah.
do
Oh
three
yeah, you can
whatever
do
other
it.
ones, but you open up more slots when you put in 3 legendary crests. Fine, fine,
Yep. You
fine.
put in 3 legendary crests, and they're like, "Hey, how about more?" Um. Yeah. It's like if people are okay. Because once again, I've done a little bit of defending of like the Blizzard. Um, there are lots of pretty, pretty scummy things that
Oh yeah.
Blizzard does in this game.
They
Like
beg
real
you for money
scummy things.
everywhere, different ways.
I think that yeah. The sort of I mean, it's very modern mobile esque. But yeah, one of the things as well, it's like, oh man, it's like I'm gonna whale and I'm gonna put in 3 legendary crests, and then they don't do this for Elder Crest, by the way, only legendary
Yeah.
crest. They're like, would you like to put 7 more in this time? And you're like, wait, what?
No, they're not even
I
asking
could
you to
do
put
that?
7 more in this time. They're asking you to buy 7 more. You can't put yours in because I've done this. Like when you put 3 legendary crests in, even if you have 7 more in your inventory, you can't use them. You have to buy 7 more.
I thought you could use them. That's why
Okay, I didn't
that's
figure
kind
out
of like
how.
Asmon like so he did a greater rift with like no crest, right? And he did a greater rift and it was like raining legendary gems. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like it was like it was more than just like 3. It was just like an entire blinding screen full of legendary gems. So yeah, like it's the game is pretty scummy in
Wait,
lots
but
of ways.
you can't get above 10 legendary gems.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if it's 10, like that's a ton,
Oh,
right?
it's a
That's
reign of
I mean,
10
it's like
legendary
all
gems. I see.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's just
Yeah,
pillars
so
of
you
light
can get it, but what
items.
I mean is like when you put 3 crests in order to click that button, because I've actually put 3 in before, like, and you get the button that'll make you buy more. It still makes you buy every single legendary crest. I don't think you use the
Mhm.
ones in your inventory for the extra 7.
Okay, it's 100% over the